Good evening, everyone. Calling this meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. Let's see. Ms. Bell, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Trustee Ojapinti,
Here.
Trustee Salahuddin,
Here.
Trustee Ian Garrett,
President.
Vice President Lee,
Here.
President Tejada.
Here. Item number 7, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes?
Actually, I have one.
Prescott?
There are no changes.
Okay. Mr. Ojapinti, you had your hand raised?
Yes, can we pull item 12A4 for discussion? Thank you.
That item would be, when we approve the consent agenda, right now, we're just approving the agenda as a whole.
As we, so we're going to approve the agenda right now as it is, and then when we come to consent, you can pull it then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are supposed to
We
do
are
roll call votes
actually-
when we are
Because
remote.
we're remote, we have to do a roll
People are
call
really
vote.
monitoring, but sure, go ahead.
Okay, so for the, there was a motion to approve the agenda, a second. Ms. Bell, we need a roll call vote.
Mr. Ojapinti,
Aye.
Trustee Salahuddin,
Aye.
Trustee Ian Garrett,
Here.
Vice President Lee,
Aye.
Vice President Lee,
Aye.
President Tejada.
Aye. Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Okay, so everything roll call
Everything
vote
is
now.
supposed to be roll call when you're remote.
Understood. Trustee Ojapinti,
Aye.
Trustee Salahuddin,
Aye.
Trustee Ian Garrett,
Aye.
Vice President Lee,
Aye.
President Tejada.
Aye.
I mean, just to clarify, we are officially in person.
We are officially in person, but because we are,
Because how is this different if one of us was traveling and joining remotely?
You're
We still
correct.
wouldn't have to switch to roll call vote. but
You're
I'm just-
correct. You are correct,
Yeah.
actually. We should have been doing it when we were remote.
Right,
but
we're-
now
we're
we are
in
officially
person right now. Yeah.
You're correct. You're correct.
Yeah.
right.
We
You are correct. Yeah.
That was from county council, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great. Item number 9, nothing to report out of closed session. Item 10A, we have the June 2021 Student of the Month from Therapeutic Day School, Ms. Basuino.
Good evening, President Tejada, members of the board. Tonight, we have our June Student of the Month. And tonight, presenting the Student of the Month will be the teacher for Therapeutic Day School, Miss Alexis Austin.
Good evening, everyone. The Jefferson Union High School District Student of the Month program recognizes the outstanding achievements of our students at school and in the community. The Student of the Month is selected by teachers and administrators for exemplifying an outstanding degree of academic achievements, leadership, and community consciousness. Each year, only 6 students receive this honor out of the 4,300 students in our district. Tonight, we recognize the 2020 and through 2021 June Student of the Month as Dylan Cockrell. We are also joined by his mother, Lisa. Welcome. Dylan is a kind young man with a gentle spirit. He lights up any virtual room he enters with his smile. He has been through a lot in his personal life, but never lets that keep him down for long. He seeks help when needed and continually strives to keep moving forward. Dylan does not trust easily, but once established, he makes strong bonds. Dylan is also an athlete and is currently training for boxing. Dylan works hard in English class and world history. He's also great with trivia. He has consistent attendance and provides insightful commentary on the literature that the class is reading. He is participatory and engaged throughout the lesson. He recognizes his strengths and acknowledges when he needs support. Dylan seems comfortable advocating his needs. He thrived during at-home learning and is thriving with in-person learning. Maintaining consistency through the pandemic has not been easy, but Dylan has demonstrated that it can be done. For future plans, Dylan has aspirations of joining the military. He is hopeful to move up the ranks to become a Navy SEAL. Please join me in congratulating our June Student of the Month, Dylan Cockerell.
Hi, Dylan. Would you like to say anything?
Are you muted?
Oh, hello, my bad.
Tell me your dogs are barking. Okay, go.
You're muted again. Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
Dude, stop barking.
It's okay. They're congratulating you. Sorry, our dogs are barking.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Is there?
Hello. Sorry,
Hello.
our dogs were having a barking attack with the neighbor dog so we had to mute. Can you guys hear us?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I know it's pretty exciting that he got this. I'm pretty proud of him. And I'm proud of what he wants to do. I don't think you guys can see us. Dylan has another thing up there, but anyway, I appreciate the recognition he's getting.
So this is Rosie, and Dylan, I've known you since kindergarten. And you and Carly have been friends, throughout elementary, middle, and high school. And I'm so proud of you because I know you're such a kind person, an incredible athlete. What always got to me was when even as a teenager, you were not afraid to hug your mom in front of your friends. And, you were so proud of it. And,
Mama's boy.
And you remember when I drop off Carly at your house and you guys would walk to middle school together on that busy street, and she said you always made sure that she was safe. And so I know you're going to do great things, and please check in with us. Let us know how you're doing. I think your grandmother would be really proud of you.
I think you're right. She's looking down with a big smile at him. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to?
I want to say congratulations, really well deserved.
Thank you.
Mr. Ojapinti, did you want to? You're on
Yeah.
mute.
Yeah, I'd just like to say congratulations. I don't know you, but based upon what I'm hearing, and of course your accomplishments, it's well deserved, and yeah, respect. Congratulations, and yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And I did share with Carly that you got Student of the Month, and she said, of course he did. Of course he did. So congratulations again.
Oh, that's great.
Best of everything. Love you guys.
Love you guys. Good to see you, Rosie.
Good to see you. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
What's that?
Mary Grace has her hand up.
Oh, Mary Grace.
Oh, thank you. I just have to, I will make it quick, but Dylan, I know I've already talked to you on the hallway, but I also wanted to congratulate you in front of all the stakeholders here. I'm so proud of you. I've known you when you started at Jefferson and how we work it out so that you will be in a better place today. So that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of your effort. And so I would also like to thank your mom. Mom, thank you so much with all the IEPs that we did together. I would like also to thank you for all the support that you've given to Dylan. Without you, this reward will not, I think that it would, with you beside him, that he was able to accomplish all these things. So thank you both. And I would also like to give a shout out to Alexis Austin, your teacher. I know she did a lot of time and work communicating with the family. So thank you as well, Alexis.
Thank you. So we're moving on to our communications board report. I do want to say that we have a lot on our agenda tonight, so I'm asking board members to limit their comments to 2 minutes.
Can you do that?
I can do that.
I don't think you can ask, but I mean, they don't, I'm just saying, you can't officially. Anyway, it's okay. Yeah.
Coach Pinty?
Yeah, just to echo that. I'm not sure I'm going to limit myself to 2 minutes. I don't know that we can require that, but I mean, in the interest of time, I will try to keep it as short as possible. First of all, congratulations to all of our students who graduated this year. And those who aren't graduating yet, of course, may have a few more things to complete. And those who are graduating this week, we have adult ed this Friday, 6 o'clock. And so congratulations in advance, of course. And just happy to see us come, I think, full circle, if we can say that, through a very long year and a half. So that means a lot, not just graduation, of course, but just getting through this all at this point. So that, and just looking at recent, events, honoring Memorial Day and Remembrance, and it's Pride Month, and we had to close out Asian American History and Heritage Month. These are things we should always reflect on. So just looking forward to summer and summer school, and looking at, we have people, looking to bridge a lot of the work that we've been doing this year through the summer, so we can have a strong hybrid learning plan moving into the fall. Is exciting to see that. Just noting a couple of things too, that some of the things that are being done at the federal level, we're signaling more support for education, which is positive. Looking at the May revise, or looking forward to, what can come out of the governor's budget this May, and how we can work around that. And the LCAP, of course, is also exciting. In addition to that too, we had a recent meeting with the city of Daly City. There was a meeting around the environmental impact report, the EIR, regarding Serramonte Del Rey, which the window is open until June 7th for members of the community to contribute their input and their feedback regarding this private development and whatever they think about it. And so with regard to how it would impact the environment, I would encourage the members of our community to participate in that. Look at our city website, City of Daly City, and look up the EIR and follow the directions in submitting any of the information. Of course, you can reach out to our district as well, but that is being run by David J. Powers and Associates through the city. And that said, I'll keep it at that, and looking forward to the rest of what we have discussed tonight. Thank you.
Aludine?
Nothing to report.
I also would like to add that I was an honor and pleasure to be able to hand out diplomas at graduation in person. So it was definitely really eventful. I'm just, we have a wonderful group of students that I was able to talk to briefly before the ceremony, and they were just so fantastic. I wish that I had met them at the beginning of school year instead of the last day of the school year, but just talking to them and the passion and what they're looking forward to in the future was just really it was just really a blessing, and that they made it through was just really encouraging. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and that it is Pride Month, and definitely celebrate with my LGBT brothers and sisters this month, raising awareness and make sure that we have equity for all and not just some. So that's it. Thank you.
And just real quickly, it was good today to run down to the Pacifica City Hall for the Pride flag raising at City Hall in Pacifica. First time the Pride flag has flown over Pacifica City Hall. And from what was mentioned there, it was the last city in San Mateo County to do so, at least so they say. So which is frankly not a surprise, I suppose. And it was just good to be able to see that happen. Wonderful to be at the graduations last week. It was fun to be at Westmore for all 3 of their ceremonies and to see the joy in the kids' faces and the families as well. So fun to see everybody out there and great to see the photos that were out from graduation. That's all I've got.
It was great to see everybody's pictures from graduation. Ms. Preston and I braved the tundra at Terra Nova. It was well worth it. The kids are so excited. Great job to Ms. Carey and her staff, putting that together, and just so proud of all our students in the district and our teachers and staff. My gosh, what Herculean task you had this year, and thank you so much. On to the consent agenda. So, Mr. Ochapinti? Oh, I'm
Yes, thank you.
sorry. That's okay. I'm jumping ahead. Time for Ms. Press's superintendent report. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I really just want to kind of reiterate what many of the board members said. It was wonderful to be at the graduations last week. I was at all of them except for Oceana, and it was terrific. So proud of everybody this year. The other thing that I want to mention is that the executive cabinet and some of the directors and I went to the school sites and, actually the school sites and Daly City Youth Health Center, the adult school, and passed out sort of a end of the year employee appreciation gift to all of our employees. And I just want to thank the executive cabinet and Ms. Bell for putting it all together, and Jean Enriquez. There was a team that put it together. Ms. Baca was instrumental in making it all come together. So thank you to them. And it was when we were going there to thank people for all of their work this year, we were met with gratitude and thanks, and it really was just really wonderful. We all shared that it felt really good to be on the sites and talking with people. So that's it. A really nice end to the school year.
Ms. Casey, Ms. Ambrose.
And it's Miss Ambrose.
The 1481 report.
Mm-hmm. Laptop. You have to take it with you.
Much technology.
Mhm.
Good evening. I'm stepping in tonight for Monica Casey to represent the Union 1481. She's on a trip with her family. And she asked me just to express, the union's gratitude for all of you and working for everybody this year, and just like how difficult it has been for staff and how really resilient our staff are. And the concern on the union end about how many employees we lose every year. I went in today to get the actual number, and as of this morning, it was 42 certificated staff. I wasn't able to get the classified number, which I think is about 10% of our staff. Does that sound about right?
I think it is about.
Yeah. And just, the difficulty with filling position, it's getting harder and harder to fill positions. And she just wanted me to come up and express my concern, or our concern, around the competitiveness in the Bay Area. And that also after the pandemic, anybody who doesn't have to work in public education probably, and whose heart isn't deeply in it, is out. And also she noted that many staff members, as far as she knows, are leaving the Bay Area because of the high cost of living. So she just wanted me to express that, but also just really express our gratitude for all of the employees of the district and the board, like holding it together in a very deeply humane way this year. So thank you.
And now on to the consent agenda. Mr.
Yeah.
Ochapinti?
Yes, item 12A4, just to pull it for discussion. Thank you.
I'm sorry, which one?
12A4.
at 12A41, or there are several under 12A4?
Oh, the one regarding COVID testing, let me look it up again for you.
Okay, 12A41.
Yes, 12A41, so thank you.
Okay. With that item pulled, do we have,
Move to approve consent agenda without that item.
all in favor?
Aye. While we're waiting with that approval, it's congratulations, though, correct?
Sorry?
That approval, weren't they in consent?
Oh, was that in?
So congratulations.
So with that, we'd like to congratulate Mary Grace Fershi and Lee Medvedoff. We've approved your, would you like to say a few words, Grace?
Yes, I am so honored and so grateful to all of the stakeholders and those who all believe in us. Thank you so much. We will, well, I should speak to myself. I will make sure to work collaboratively with all our school sites as well as the other stakeholders to make sure that we are all in compliance and we are moving forward with our vision goal. So thank you so much.
And Lee?
Yeah, it's just definitely want to echo what Grace said. Very grateful. Really excited to continue to serve our students in our community in this new role. Very thrilled to be taking this step with Grace. We've been side by side as program specialists and very excited to continue our work as part of the special education director team. And thank you all so much.
Hey, public comment?
We do have one public comment tonight. One on item 12.A.1 and also a non-agenda item. Oh. No, not an agenda. Yes, on non-agenda item.
I think she said one was not on the agenda and then one was, but the same person,
The
correct?
item,
Yes.
the item number?
14.A.1.
Okay. I thought
And
you
then
said
also
12.
not comment
Okay.
on non-agenda item as well.
Yes.
Did you want to call?
Okay,
the person?
sorry, yes.
Yeah, so go ahead and comment.
Yeah, yeah, okay, Mr. Andrew Humbre, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just all, I'm very distracted, sorry. Yes, I'm just, sorry. Let me see. Is here.
There he is. Mhm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, school board member Carla, for just letting me speak tonight, and everyone on the board and admin. I was gonna, give some comments on a later agenda. I feel like I'm the only one speaking tonight, but for this part, I just wanted to show my appreciation and just thank everyone on the board, thank everyone on the admin for all the tough decisions that had to be made this year and all that you do. And, you don't get enough appreciation. And I just wanted to extend my appreciation to all of you for, everything that has been accomplished during the school year, considering, we faced a lot of things, a lot of struggles, a lot of obstacles, but, there was a lot of highlights, but they were overshadowed by the pandemic. But I just wanted to say thank you and just extend my appreciation to all of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
I just want to say real quick that I know I'm not supposed to comment, but that I had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Sombre in person. It was really nice at the Westmore dedication ceremony. So thank you for speaking, Ms. Sombre. Really appreciate you.
You are allowed to respond. to
I am,
You
okay.
are. It's
Yes.
the Brown Act is
Thank
a
you.
weird, tricky. little thing.
No, thank you. I was like, I'm not sure, but okay.
So now we're going to move on to the discussion items. 14A1 Ethnic Studies update. Should we, I can't remember, do we have?
Mr. Ombre would like to speak on this item as well.
After.
After, okay.
Yeah. Mhm. Every time I've come to present, it's been a slightly different format. I think I'm doing the right thing right now. I just need to share my screen, right? All right, this is going to be brief and hopefully informative. Leave it open for some questions. Just wanted to give the board a brief update on where we are in the ethnic studies conversation since the group of teachers, Mr. Ombre, Mr. Perez from Westmore, Ms. Dean from Jefferson came to present. So the intention is just, again, update the progress on our thoughtful and integrated ethnic studies implementation. The goals, I took this right out of the slides that group of teachers came to present in January about. They stated 3 goals. The first one was to establish a task force this summer to kind of review different curriculum models, get started discussing the work, who would be reaching out to and working with this. But as you just heard, this year was rough for a lot of people and for a lot of teachers. And that January presentation happened even before we fully knew the full scope of hybrid. And so as I was getting together, and I meet with Asra a lot because she's our social science lead and our ethnic studies lead, and she was like, we're tired. June's going to be for some relaxation. And I know our entire team is 100% in support of that. So she said in talking to the group that they want to push for those conversations to happen this summer, but it happened closer to the end of July, even early August. And so that's a slight change, a very small pushback to some of those conversations. The next thing was to present options, kind of start to discuss a curriculum being built. And you'll notice that they said based on the state's model curriculum. Since then, also, a lot of changes have happened with the state's model curriculum that have made it so that the original authors actually have all asked for their names to be removed. And so there's actually a group that's presenting what they're calling the liberated ethnic studies model curriculum. And that is probably one that will align closer to what our group ends up developing, because we are actually partnering with community responsive education to do this work. And some of those folks from CRE were also the original authors that have since asked their names to be removed from the model curriculum. So I'll talk about them a little bit more in a moment, but we do have a contract that is hopefully going to be going before you for approval soon. We're waiting on it. We have their scope of work. We just don't have the official contract yet. And then their ultimate goal was by the end, to start out 22-23 to have each school year implementing an ethnic studies course. And we are on track to meet this goal, especially with the scope of work that's been proposed. So with that scope of work and CRE, I'm very, very excited about this because, as you know, the group of teachers who came to speak to you, in addition to Keisha David from Oceana, Joel Vargas, Adam Huvey's been involved in working on it, a group of teachers that really started just grassroots, meeting on their own. No one from the district asked them to do this. They were moved to the work, started getting together, having these discussions, and they were the first to bring up working with CRE. This is an organization with Jeff Duncan Andrade and Alison Santiago Cubales, among others, who a lot of us in this room even have had the fortune of working with if you attended San Francisco State University. Jeff Duncan Andrade was my research methodology teacher, but they teach a lot of ethnic studies courses there. And they also work with Jefferson Elementary School District, and they have implemented a lot of work there. So when they brought that name forward and this organization forward, it was really great to already have some familiarity and know that incoming students will also have familiarity with the kind of work that will be produced. Another thing that's really great, and you can click this link, the scope of work, for a little bit more detailed, but I pulled out some of the things that I think are really important. In addition to helping us build a curriculum, they start the work by building a mission and vision for what ethnic studies will be in our district, which is, I think, incredibly important work. Because it's really supposed to guide the sustainability of this work, that this isn't just supposed to be a group of dedicated teachers or a group of dedicated administrators or even a dedicated board. This is supposed to live within our system and become sustainable. So that vision is very important. Because of that, the teacher development and even administrator development and rollout is very important, making sure that this is not just something that can be plugged into our system without other kinds of considerations. And yet Allison, especially, who I've been mostly in discussion with this, is really insistent that they don't want to be here forever, though, that CRE is not, running ethnic studies in our district, that this is eventually something that we have to own. So the entire eye towards all of this work is to make this something that lives with us, that is ours. That's really important, I think, to everyone as well. And finally, Allison said, when I was talking to her, that what's really cool about this is a lot of people reach out to her organization that are people like me, administrators, and they're like really excited about getting to work. The fact that this came from our teachers, that this was really from the ground up, really makes me excited to partner with this organization. I think it's going to be remarkable. So lastly, Ms. Baca held it down in the LCAP for all of this work to happen, because it's got to have a reality, and that's got to mean line item budgets. And so it is integrated into goal 3 of our LCAP with support for the contract for working with community responsive education for at least the next 2 years. And funds to support all of the teacher meetings and collaborations that'll be happening. This is going to be like any scope and sequence and course development that we do. It's going to be constantly iterative. We're going to have to meet, refine. And finally, Ustra works really, really hard. But this is a lot of work on top of all the work she's also supporting with our social science scope and sequence, which is implementing its world history and US history course scope and sequence for the first year next year, and working on GovEcon and ethnic studies. And so she's actually going to be on a teacher and special assignment for a period next year. And so that's also been supported through the LCAP, thanks to the executive cabinet. And so I know it's kind of brief, but those are the main updates that I have for you this evening. So I will end now for questions.
Want to do public comment first?
Let's do public comment.
Okay, we'll bring back Mr. Ombre.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you again. Again, I just wanted to show my appreciation for something like this being introduced and moving forward in our district. I liked the idea of bringing community to the forefront when it comes to ethnic studies, and I know it was a lot of work. I know it was a lot of things to think about in terms of funding and just trying to make this work in our district. And for that, I'm very appreciative of this meaningful work that is going to not just be a moment. It's going to be some sort of way to get to a space of healing for our community. And for that, thank you for everyone involved, teachers, parents, admin who really pushed for this. And I'm not the first one to say it's about time. Our community is hungry for it. Our students are hungry for a course of study that reflects them, right? Reflects their narratives, their stories, and not to come to a place of hurting or isolating people, but come to a place of solidarity and healing. And last thing, I want to, thank, everyone who acknowledged this liberated model of ethnic studies. I know, we tout different things, create like buzzwords for different agendas. And I thank everyone who, did the research and, getting to a better place of implementing a long sustaining program that is going to empower our students and our community. And that's all I wanted to say. And I can't wait, to see this move forward. I can't wait to work with my colleagues and work with the community. And thank you again.
Mr. Humbright. Okay, all right, we'll let him go, but we thank you, Mr. Humbright. You can hear us. We appreciate your voice and thank you for empowering our students as well.
I'm going to open this up to the board. If you have any comments or questions, Ms. Salahuddin, you have your hand raised.
So thank you for the update. I had a few comments. So I'm very happy that we're moving forward with CRE. I was able to read through the proposal that they sent. My only concern was reading through the proposals. It looked like that it was like Jefferson Elementary's proposal, and then they just copied it for us. So that always lights off like alarm bells for me. So just making sure that it is like tailored for us and that those discussions do happen. I did watched the clip of Mr. Andrade, Dr. Andrade speaking, and the community clip, the part where he talked about community education and leaving cultural, but leaving more about community, I think was a really important point. And I think it also highlights some things that have been brought up before about the urgency around different fundraising initiatives, especially the fundraising initiative that we've done around the district office site and why that falls within the LCAP. And one of the reasons for me, and I'm just going to keep bringing this up because this question has been brought up by another school board member, is that you can't have teachers that are relevant, can speak to the community relevantly if they don't live here, right? And I think that's a huge component. And one of the things that we suffer is that so many of our teachers and staff live very far away and can't spend that time here to get to know the community well enough in order to teach in a way that is reflective and impactful of the lives that the students are currently living. And this is in all aspects. How do we make all the curriculum relevant for the students in all areas? I think that is a huge part of, so quote unquote, ethnic studies as well, is how do we teach in a way that makes students interested and they know that this means something for me as a resident of this section of Daly City, or as a resident of this part of Brisbane or this part of Pacifica, as well as the part that you play as whoever you are and wherever you live in a larger part of society. So I think that those two things are connected. And I just wanted to highlight that. And then the last piece of this is I'm really happy that you guys have support. I know that this is a lot of work, and that at Jefferson, there's going to be another heavy lift happening there with the switch. So I'm glad that there's support here to help this move forward, and it's not always all on the backs of you all to try to get this pushed. So, I'm glad that we are where we are, and I look forward to hopefully having CRE at some point in here so we can talk to them and ask questions. So thank you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the update. I requested this update as I do periodically, just because I want to, I think, highlight some of the things our district is doing in the interest of equity, has been doing, things we've been requesting as a board for years as well. And so it's good to see as a trustee and as a teacher and as somebody who studied ethnic studies, majored in that in college, to see this come to fruition in our district. So just appreciation to all your work, of course, Dr. Robinson, Mr. Hombre, and all the people, like you said, student and teacher initiated kind of push for ethnic studies, because we want to see that in our education, and I think we should. That said, I mean, the presentation looked good. One of the things that was mentioned there, maybe not highlighted as much, is the timeline is that we're still on track. We're still on track to implement ethnic studies by the fall of 2022, which is good to see. I have full faith this can happen. As you said, Dr. Robinson, in terms of scope and sequence and lining things up, we do this every year in terms of our curriculum and master's, schedule planning. And so like, when we're looking at what we can do, I agree as a teacher, summertime, for those of us who aren't teaching summer school, is a time to, take some time away so we can come back stronger. So I'm looking forward to those discussions. A few things. One, in terms of the follow-up from the last Race and Equity Task Force meeting, I have requested that we follow up on that soon. It has been a tough semester getting through the rest of this pandemic and getting through hybrid learning. So I didn't get a chance to see the video from the last session in February. I guess as a request, can we post that to our YouTube so that everybody can see it and be part of that process? I, for one, would love to share that as somebody who's on the Race and Equity Committee now. That's my first request. But yeah, the timeline is really reassuring. I guess the second part is in terms of support from, say, Dr. Duncan Andrade and of course, Dr. Tintianco Cabales. Are we engaging any other faculty or departments at, say, San Francisco State, at City College, San Francisco, at Skyline, in terms of input on their end? And how would that maybe look in terms of creating another follow-up community feedback session, maybe at the end of the summer and early fall?
So I think one of the things that Allison has done in this community in working with JFL and also being a member of San Francisco State, I know a lot of folks that work with her at State. She has a pulse on the community. She knows how and what kind of people to bring in. I can't remember specific names right now. I'm looking over at Karine to see if she does. There was somebody specific, a few specific people that she mentioned bringing in. When we work with CRE, we will get sort of a, I don't know how else to put this, like a stable, a portfolio of folks, not just, Allison and Jeff, but really bringing in people when it makes sense, where it makes sense. And I think from all over, I think there are a lot of, she has a lot of connection with people at Skyline, as well as San Francisco State. So I think the scope of work just kind of gives a macro view, an overview. I think as they get together and they start working with the teachers, one of the teachers' main goals is to get input from the community members, and they've already specifically asked her to help them facilitate that work. And so I know that that will be a part of it. I just don't know specifics right now.
Got it. Thank you.
Billy?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Dr. Robinson. Really helpful, quick update. I appreciate it. And I think it's, just looking at the LCAP, $100,000 is budgeted. And I think that's really, just a great investment in the work that we're going to be doing, especially when we forget, or at least we up here remember, and we know it, but I think so many members of our community forget that we are a majority non-white school district. We're 86% non-white. And I think it's really important for the people of our community to remember that, which is why this course of study is going to be so critical to the future success of our students. So thank you so much to you, and especially to the teachers on the team who are doing this heavy lift. And I'm very excited to see the results over the course of the next year.
Me too. All right. Thank you. Oh,
I'm okay. I say you're muted, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Oh, I just, go right ahead. No, I just have a comment. I know your presentation was brief, but it was very informative and, as usual, very comprehensive. I think we should all have buttons that say Ms. Baca held it down.
Always.
I love it.
Always holds it down.
But I just think that Yeah, it's also that the students really came forward. How many emails did we get from students asking for ethnic studies and how important it was? You know, how many text messages have we received from students and public comment from students? And they also were part of the presentation on ethnic studies. It was very, I'm talking about grassroots, and it's all starting here, and it's because it's very needed. And we're not a check the box kind of school district. So I just want to thank you for presenting to us and giving us an update. And I'm looking forward to this great work.
A lot of those students, just last parting thought, were seniors.
Yes.
Who just want it for the good of
Mhm.
it.
Thank you. Okay. So now we're on to the action items, and let's go to the item 12A41 that Mr. Ochapinti pulled. And that's the agreement between Inspire Diagnostics and JUHSD for COVID-19 testing services. So, Mr. Ochapinti, what was your question on this?
I have a few questions, actually. Thank you. Actually, if first Superintendent Presta or anybody would like to go over exactly what it is and why we're doing it right now, because I think it's important, but I want to hear some of the background for the public as well.
Sure, I'm actually going to turn it over to Associate Superintendent Basuino because this is her item.
Yes, so one of the things that we realized was that Curative, the company that we were working with, was no longer going to be providing testing. So we had to go out and find a company that would continue to do the testing. And as you know, not all of our students have had access to the vaccination. So this is just a way to, continue to provide, to our community, the ability to have access to the testing. So what's great about Inspire, it's going to be our first time working with them, but they actually come in and they do the testing themselves, whereas we were the ones doing the testing before. They bring in staff, they do the testing for us, and then we get the results. So this will be our first time working with them. We know El Camino, South City, and Half Moon Bay have also used them. So we're looking forward to getting this up and running for our summer school students and staff.
Got it. Thank you. Actually, I think you answered half the questions there. I'll just, yeah, I mean, I've asked before, right? In terms of how we're staffing and how we're paying for it, and in terms of just the necessity. I know as a shift has been in terms of attention to COVID towards vaccinations, right? And though we know that not all of our community is vaccinated and not all have access to all of these things, we should provide it. And so in terms of how it's being run, what's the same and what's different, right? So what can our community expect in terms of the protocols, or, like even just the drive up, is it going to be the same, conducted in the same fashion? It's good to know that we have a similar service that local districts are also using, like Curative was doing as well. But yeah, are there any changes that the public should know about in terms of access and schedule for testing?
Yeah, so just to clarify, this isn't, this is for our students and our staff. What's different about the Curative that's in the public, that's still going to be happening. That's still here at the district office, they'll still running it. But Curatives stopped providing that to us for our students. So that's why we had to look for a different company. But the public, it still has access to them being here at the district office. I believe the times are the same. This is specific towards summer school students and summer school staff. It'll be happening on Tuesdays during summer school from 9 to 11 a.m.
Curative site at Jeff is still going to nothing has changed. At the public sites that are community-based sites are still the same and haven't changed.
Got it. And it'll be weekly on Tuesdays for our district community at Jeff.
Well, it's just for summer school, correct?
Yeah, it's just for our students.
Right.
So for our students and staff. So we'll send some notification out to them that we're working on. We're having to translate it.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
So that's an action item.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now on to 15A1, Jefferson Union High School District Teamsters 856 contract negotiation proposal for 2020-2021 school year.
Good evening. It is recommended that the board adopt the initial proposal for contract negotiations between the JUHSD and Teamsters 856 for the 2020-2021 school year.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
15A2, addendum to hybrid instruction COVID-19 pandemic MOU.
Yes, good evening. So this is an addendum. As you know, the California Department of Managed Health Care's emergency regulation, 28 CCR, mandating insurance coverage of COVID-19 diagnostic testing for essential workers in California sunset on May 15th, 2021. This regulation change means that effective May 16th, 2021, curative COVID-19 testing for employees cannot be billed to insurance carriers. The state of California discontinued the mandate that insurance providers cover the cost of COVID-19 testing, as surveillance testing is no longer recommended. As such, the Jefferson High School District and American Federation of Teachers Local 1481 created an addendum to Memorandum of Understanding regarding COVID-19 testing during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Per this MOU, COVID testing of employees is no longer required. It is recommended that the board approve this item.
Do you have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry. Okay. Item 15B1, resolution 2020/21-35, education protection account.
Good evening, President Tejada, members of the board. Since Prop 30 passed in 2012, this item has become an annual end of the year compliance item. As outlined, we have approximately $800,000 each year that comes from this account. It cannot be used on admin salaries, and so every year we put it towards teacher salaries. And it's recommended that the board approve this resolution tonight.
The resolution.
Second. Aye.
Item 15B3, oh no, 15B2, resolution 2020/21-36, budgetary increases and transfers at year end.
So thank you. This is another annual compliance item. It allows the county superintendent to transfer year-end accounts to make sure that all of our accounts end on a positive. So it's recommended that you approve this resolution.
Motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 15B3, resolution 2020/21-38, intent to convey a public utility easement to PG&E.
So as part of the faculty and staff housing development, in order to get utilities to the site, we must grant an easement to PG&E. The first step in this process is to adopt a resolution of intent. This will allow district staff to do the public postings and the newspaper postings. And then on June 15th, you would be asked to grant the actual easement.
Second. Aye.
Public hearings, 16A1, public hearing and resolution for fiscal year 2020-22 for the JUHSD Maintenance Assessment District.
Thank you again. This is another annual item for us to continue to receive funding as a maintenance assessment district, which generates about $360,000 per year. The item requires a public hearing be opened and then the board approve the resolution.
Well, my gavel is missing, so that's my phone. I open this public hearing. Hearing no one. Public hearing is closed. And we have a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 16A2, public hearing 2021-2022. Reserves in excess of state minimum level.
Okay, thank you. So this is an item that requires a public hearing, but not any board approval. It is a public hearing because we are projecting that we will carry more than 3% reserves. 3% is the minimum required, and if you carry more than that, then you have to have a public hearing to allow people to discuss that. But no action is necessary, just to open the hearing and close it.
Public hearing open. Public hearing closed. All right. Now on to 16A3, public hearing for the 2021-2022 proposed budget.
Thank you. So the proposed budget has been made available to the public prior to this meeting and notices have been posted. So tonight, the proposed budget is being presented for public hearing and discussion, and then it would come back for adoption on June 15th. There's not been much change since our work study in April, so I will just briefly go over the executive summary before we discuss. So last year at this time, it was projected that there would be a dramatic decrease in Prop 98 funds due to the pandemic. However, in California, that's not been the case. The state revenue has shown growth, and the projection from the governor's May revise is that there will be an investment in raising the LCFF base, also investments in early childhood education, making a deposit into the rainy day fund, and investments in the educator pipeline. Another proposal that he has put forward is to raise the concentration grant. So most of those increases do not actually impact us directly. The increase to the LCFF formula will actually decrease the money we have by a little bit because the charter school will get a little bit more. But pretty much not a big impact. What it does is it raises our safety net, right? So we're always worried about that gap between how much money we receive in basic aid funding and how much the LCFF formula is, because that's our safety net. And so that will get closer, but it's not going to, we're not going to turn back into a revenue limit district. So moving on here, the federal funding. So I talked about LCFF. The federal funding is higher than anticipated because of the ESSER 3 pandemic money that will be coming our way. And then state funding, the other state funding, there is going to be a 4% increase to special education funds. And they're projecting continuing CTE funding, which is really a huge relief because that's something that we're always going year to year worrying about. And I see some like stabilization in that program, which is a good thing. And then locally, the public is starting to be able to use our facilities again, and that's helping with our revenue there. So the assumptions, again, very similar to what we had in our work study, the property tax increases being projected at 2% for 21-22, and then back to 3.5%, which is kind of our average. COLAs, cost of living increase in CPI numbers are higher than they have been, which, you know, is a little bit worrisome that we might be seeing some inflation in the goods and services that we use. And then our STRS and PERS projections continue to go up. And that's one thing that's missing from this May revise that the governor has done in the past is bought down some of that increase, and he's not proposing doing that anymore. Lastly, something I don't usually point out is unemployment insurance has been the same for as long as I've been in the business, but this year, because of the pandemic, they're projecting a 1.23% increase, or not, I'm sorry, a 1.23% assessment that's up from 5.05%, which is a huge increase, is over $300,000 for our district. A lot of the advocacy groups are pushing back that schools should be exempt from this increase because we were not allowed to lay people off, which I think is a very good point. However, I don't know that that's going to go anywhere. The other thing we've been told is that we can use our COVID relief funds to cover that difference because it is a direct result of the pandemic. So if it doesn't come down, at least we know we can use our relief funds. The multi-year projection assumes no additional salary increases beyond the 2% that we gave this year. And it assumes that we use our COVID relief funds up in this coming year and the following year. So there would be no more to be used in the 23-24 school year. And then, as I mentioned, you know, the question of inflation is something that is really something we have to watch closely right now. I did use just the regular CPI number in projecting our increased costs, but some products like food and gas, those costs are growing much faster than the rate of inflation. So we just need to watch that. As you can see with the current projections, we are projecting a 9.29% reserve for 21-22, 9.58 for the following year, and then 3 years out, which is really hard to predict, 12.75% reserves. And then we have our additional reserves in Fund 17. But I would caution you, I think it's really important that we look at first interim in November to see how the increased costs, and then also all of our staffing costs and everything will be much more concrete by that point. The state doesn't, excuse me, finalize their budget until the end of June. So then we'll see if there are different things, but most of what the state is discussing does not directly impact us as a community funded district. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Oh, Mr. Up in the public hearing. Oh, okay, sorry.
Mr. Chapinti?
Yeah, more comment, I guess one question. Thank you for the presentation on that. It's encouraging to see the state leaning in certain areas, special education being one of them, and even the federal government looking at higher education. But in terms of funding and our LCAP, I guess my question would be, you know, given that the state hasn't signaled any other additional help in terms of CalSTRS or PERS, that of course is concerning for all of us, I think statewide, though I do believe advocacy groups will continue to push the state to take more action there. I think it's important to note that the first action that Governor Newsom took upon taking office was to fulfill one of his promises, and that was to pay down some of the burden around CalSTRS. And so that in terms of pension, I think that's something to look at, and I would just encourage us to take a careful look at that, because I think it will be an issue to come in the years forward, just like unemployment and mentioning, you know, whether the responsibility should be fully on school districts moving forward. But it is encouraging that the state had a surplus, about 49 billion. And I'm not sure that's going to decrease over the next few years, but yeah, I guess my only question would be, have you heard any discussion around CalSTRS and the state outside of this budget or anything, you know, long-term?
As you mentioned, you know, there are advocacy groups that continue to advocate for this. You know, mostly I've heard just discussion about trying to stabilize the program rather than giving us one-time funds each year, is to stabilize it. That's what more of the advocacy is going towards now, but nothing concrete.
And I would also say that, I mean, the state has a surplus, education doesn't.
Right.
So, you know, California surplus really doesn't have anything to do with us. because none of that money is coming to K-12, especially in putting into context, the special education money, like, let's talk about how much he owed us, right? The state owed us and was underfunding.
Didn't.
So when we're talking about in the same way that after the recession in 2008, there's lots of talks about, look how much money we're dumping in education. It was like, no, you're just giving back what you initially took. So this to me isn't any new money. This is again, replacing money that you took in the first place or were never fully funding to begin with in tons of unfunded mandates. So this doesn't even cover the number of unfunded mandates for special education in this legislative year alone, right? Because they are putting a whole bunch of new requirements, which I feel are necessary in special education and making sure our special education students are covered. But at the same time, none of that legislation comes with any additional dollars. So I think that's the other thing that we need to be mindful of is that, California continues to underfund K-12 education, that we still continue to hover around 36 to 48, however you're calculating the number. And that we've been advocating for as long as I've been alive, I think, for education funding, and people before that have been advocating, and we're still in the same place. So that's why it's even more important to focus on locally generated revenue that we can control, because the state is going to do what the state continues to do. That's not to say that I don't continue advocating. The advocacy is ongoing for me, but it's, as most of you know who have been in the room with me, when I've talked to state legislators, whoever, it's like hitting your head against a brick wall. I mean, they really are like, feel blessed that you have what you have. We're not giving you any more money. That's all. That's the caveat I have, that I'm grateful that we have reserve for emergency. But I do wish that, we could be funded to meet the need that was evident through COVID. We saw how important public education was through COVID. We should be funded as such, so.
Yeah, thank you for that, Trustee Saladin. I just want to, echo the reason why I do mention federal and state funding is because the majority of our funding comes from state, and then, of course, other sources, including federal. Our locally generated revenue does not pay for most of the operations in this district and never will. But I think it's important to explore all of our options. However, I think it's important to do it responsibly and advocate for those things, including when, as you mentioned, Trustee Saladin, when our state legislators are not responsive to our needs here locally, that we have very clear and direct communication and conversations with them. And maybe in that sense, to encourage those policy pushes, encouraging, funding measures that will be more sustainable. Like we know Prop 13 has changed education funding decades ago and has not been fully addressed. So, of course, our state funding is never, and federal funding has never fully met that. As a teacher in special education, I'm acutely aware of the fact that special education has never been fully funded from its inception. So for decades, we're looking at something that is actually fundamentally a flaw in public policy. And I do have faith in this administration and Governor Newsom, of course, our new Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona at the federal level, to take more steps in terms of addressing that. Of course, First Lady Jill Biden being an educator herself. And so leaning in that direction, I think it's good to lean forward with an optimistic lead. But of course, we know that those obstacles still remain in front of us. So I'll encourage us to push for where we can get our most funding, which of course is at the state level. And yeah, thank you again for this.
Most of our funding, we're locally funded. So most of our funding comes locally. We don't.
From the property taxes.
Yeah, from property. Most of our money comes locally. We're not state funded.
State funding provides funding for most of our state and public education. Here, though, we are a flipper district, as it's called, because we go back and forth in terms of whether we are basic aid or based off of state funding. Currently, and for the last few years, we have been at the point where our revenues are funding our district, but for many years, we were not. We were dependent upon state funding. In the event that our funding level changes, we will be again dependent on state funding, like many districts who are low-income districts like us here. We know that. And so just for clarity, the state provides most of the funding for districts in our state. And so that is important. I think changing policy for all districts, not just advocating for ours, of course, but for all districts in our situation and similar situations where we may go back and forth. And we're one of a few districts in our state that's doing that because of local measures, parcel taxes and bond measures, to be, clear. But I think it's important to recognize that if it weren't for those little things, we'd be back to state funding, which is where I think the underlying problem
No,
is.
that's not true. That's not true.
It is a fact. It is true. This is policy.
Well, we can have.
If our funding levels,
I just-
excuse me, let me finish. Excuse me, I've been interrupted a few times. I just need to
Well, that
clarify.
was Tina. That was
Let me-
Tina trying to clarify. That was Ms. Van Rampers trying to
Let
clarify.
me clarify first is
Okay.
we
no
were,
worries.
yes, well, it is true that many districts in our state are funded through the state. And because they don't have local revenue that surpasses their state funding, basically they don't receive financial aid. There are many ways to put it, but some districts rely on financial aid, as our district has for many, many years. But in recent years, we've now accumulated enough property revenue from property taxes that we are funded here locally. But this goes back and forth in different years, depending. Though we're projected to keep that level of funding, we never know, depending on the needs of our community, and of course, cost of living and all these other things. Given the challenges around housing and even retaining our faculty and staff, including myself, I'm a local teacher renting here, right? Like, these are challenges we're going to look at ongoing. The needs of our district and the funding for that, however, could change. And so we don't know what that's going to be, but of course, I would like Tina, if she'd like to elaborate more on that, where that is, because she has illustrated many of the challenges in our district financially, and we are in a better place than we used to be, but we could always go back to where we have more challenges, and I do see that. So yes, please.
I
Mr. Knappers.
just wanted to point out that the parcel tax and the bond monies do not impact whether or not we are locally funded. We're community funded because we receive more in property taxes than our LCFF formula would generate. The LCFF formula is based on the number of students we have and the base grant from the state. And so because our students have decreased, our base grant would also decrease, which brings us further away from the formula being more than our property taxes. As you said, also, the property taxes keep increasing. So that gap has been growing as they lifted the LCFF formula for this year. That brings it a little bit closer, but I don't think that our district is going to be flipping anymore unless there's something dramatic that changes in the way that state funds education.
Right. And just really quickly, Andy, I just wanted to say, because people watch us on YouTube, I just wanted to clarify, because it was confusing for me when you said we are state funded or we get most of our funding. All this stuff is confusing. So I get that you're talking about school districts in general, but I'm specifically talking about this district, and I want people who are watching on TV to understand that in this district, most of our funding is locally funded, that we haven't been a flipper district in like 6 years, I believe.
No, it's been less than that.
Is it
Probably-
5?
Yeah, something. I don't know. I'd have to look.
It's 5 or 6 years. And that we're not going to be a flipper district, that we are staying basic aid, and that we receive most of our money locally. And that's why we're looking for more local assistance, because we're not going to get much funding from the state. We only get money for supplemental programs. Most of the stuff, our money comes from is locally funded. So thank you.
Really?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Ms. Van Raffers, what is the percentage above base are we now going forward, roughly?
That's a good question. With the 5%, it's probably 8% above. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
But I'll definitely present that again at first interim.
Yeah, no, I know that's always helpful, because what's always sticks in my mind is the districts to the south of us, which are at, 150, 170, 180, something like
Yep.
that. Which continues to explain the gap that we have, which is why when we talk about salaries, it's really important for, again, our community to understand we are faced with a structural problem,
right?
A fundamental structural problem.
Right.
When our district by itself has the same property value as one city in one of those districts, that's where we run into problems.
Yeah. And also why, we're leaning so heavily into local solutions is because to fix the structural issue, we have to find revenue that's kind of outside what we're already getting. Otherwise, we're gonna have to dip into our reserves, which are needed to cover the gap that we have between what the state funds every district at and how much we get. And so that, as Ms. Van Rapport has indicated, continues to increase, which is good news in one sense that we're getting more money, but also a little scary in that if something were to happen with our local property taxes and we were to go down and to flip, which is like the scariest thing ever, we would have to find money to cover that gap. So we need to have that another, keep looking for those local revenue sources in order to give raises, but also to keep ourselves fiscally safe.
Pinti?
Yeah, I would say, just in reference to the LCAP and just I think when we're looking at the budget, one, I think we should be careful to project that we're in fiscal danger. We have more revenue, as we've stated here. We have more in our district than we had in previous years. I believe maybe the last time that we were state funded was maybe like 3 years ago. Ms. Van Appel, you can clarify. I can't recall exactly. I believe it's 2 or 3 years ago, but that we've gone back and forth because we are a low-income community here in the Bay Area, where the cost of living is the highest in the state, if not the country, in many ways, and especially in our county. I think I'd also caution us from comparing ourselves to some of the richest communities in our country, which are here in San Mateo County. There's simply no comparison. The disparity and the inequities are clear. We know that. And there's no way to close that gap in any easy way. But structurally, I will agree with Vice President Lee that we need something structural. I will argue that that's policy-based, not just financially based here locally, because in a worst case scenario, we could go back to being more state funded in that sense, like many districts in our state, and rely on that financial aid essentially to get us through, which we know as a low-income district has been a shoestring budget for many years and of course generations. And so I think those issues and struggles and those challenges are ahead of us, but I think there are multiple ways to address that. And without necessarily leasing or selling district land, our school property is for schools, for education. And so when we're looking at options and opportunities and looking at those scenarios, we should think very carefully long-term about understanding that future generations here in the Bay Area, especially here in San Mateo County, should consider that our enrollment could grow if families are able to move here and live here, and of course, want their students, their children to attend our schools. And so we should think long-term in terms of sustainability on many levels. But I'll leave it at that. And I'll thank you for the presentation on the LCAP and of course, future discussion on it.
And I think those are all valid points. I agree with everything that you said. And that's why when we've gone about this planning, we've looked at the census tract data and we've looked at the census data on our enrollment. And we know that we could grow substantially in our school district as is with the seats that we have available and be able to fit everyone. So we went over a lot of this in our discussion with Brisbane about if the Brisbane and Bayshore developments, not even talking about current enrollment in our school district, but if we were to add like a whole half a city in Brisbane, because Brisbane is going to double in size, we wouldn't have to add a classroom. We could still fit all of those students into our current level of enrollment right now. So we could grow substantially as a school district and still be able to fit everybody in the schools we have now without having to build another school, without having to add any classrooms. We have the space. Terra Nova is under enrolled right now. Westmore has the capacity to have much more students. There's other areas where we could grow. So we're fine there. And I think we've put a lot of effort into looking at our long-term and making sure that we have space for students. So space is not going to be an issue. And what will be an issue is, and what will affect our ability to teach incoming students is if we don't have teachers or staff, right? I mean, that will have a greater impact on our capacity if we don't have people who can teach core classes. That limits how many students that we could take. And right now, if you look at, how many people and educators and staff members we've lost in vital positions, that's going to heavily impact our enrollment. So I agree with you that we need to think long-term. And I think that as a board member, that's where I put most of my effort in looking long-term. I will also say that fiscally, you brought up a really good point that COLA is high. So that does put us in fiscal jeopardy because, as you said, we are a poor community and our district funding is reflected that we are a poor community poor district. Coal is high. So that I think it's not unreasonable to say that we are in fiscal danger and that we need to pay attention to that as school board members, because we don't know what's going to happen with cost of living. And as Ms. Van Rompuy pointed out, inflation rates. So that is something that's we really need to pay attention to. And I don't think it's a misstep or misspeaking to point that out. And the other point is that, yes, we have more revenue now. But as you said, the cost of living has gone up, and the extra money that they gave us, they instantly took away with how much money we had to pay in the STRS and PERS. And so they gave us a bunch of revenue and then said, and now you have to pay for teachers' pensions. So it's great that we have all this new money that we really can't spend, that we are just really almost laundering for the state of California, and money comes right in and then goes right back out. And the governor is only helped with a small portion of that. We're still carrying the weight. And then let's not also talk about healthcare, and that healthcare should be universal, and school districts should not be covering the heavy cost of healthcare. Healthcare continues to go up, and that we know that after the federal government stops holding up healthcare as it has been through COVID-19, I don't want to know what our healthcare rates are going to be moving forward. So that's another area that has gone up dramatically. So even though we got a whole lot more money, we're paying out in a lot of extra expenses that the state put on us, and then in the guise of giving us more money. So I think that's another really important thing that we need to point out and pay attention to.
Ms. Van Ramphorst, you had your hand raised?
I just wanted to, I did look up while we were sitting here, the last time that we were state funded was 16-17, the 16-17 school year.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, public
This
hearing.
is a public hearing, so I'm going to open a public hearing. Any public here? Hearing closed. And then we will bring this back to the June 15th board meeting.
That's correct.
Now on to 16B1, public hearing on the 2021-2024 JUHSD Local Control and Accountability Plan. Ms. Baca.
All right, again, waiting for this, the LCAP. Love it. So I've been doing the LCAP since 2013-14, and I don't know if you know that each year there's a color that I choose. This year I was very intentional with the color that I use. So it's gray and yellow, and it's actually the color of the year. And it's ultimate gray and illuminating. That's the name of the yellow color. And let me tell you why, because this actually symbolizes the LCAP that we have and what we've been through. So let me just read. The union of enduring ultimate gray with a vibrant yellow, illuminating expresses a message of positivity supported by fortitude. Practical and rock solid, but at the same time, warming and optimistic. This is a color combination that gives us resilience and hope. We need to feel encouraged and uplifted. This is essential to the human spirit. So when I read that, when I heard that this was the color of the year, I was like, well, this is, the LCAP of the year. And what we have in our actions and goals are, some foundational things that we've had for quite some time now, but there are some things that we're adding to just make it a little better to support all of our students. So my presentation is going to be brief because a lot of these items were discussed during the budget session, the budget LCAP session in April. So nothing much has changed. So I'll be going over the areas of need, stakeholder engagement, goals and actions, and then increase or improve services and expenditures. So the goals were formed based on the dashboard indicators. So this is from the 1920, and more specifically, we looked at the gaps for our student groups. So I included there the different gaps that we have for suspension rate, for graduation rate, college and career. I also look at some of the local indicators that we had set in place. And also the goals were based on the accountability monitoring plans that we have to do, like the significant disproportionality plan and our special education plan and the comprehensive support and improvement plan. So that's how the goals were developed, based on metrics. And with this, we had multiple stakeholder engagement. So we had a couple of district advisory committee meetings where they provided feedback on what they would like to see. Dr. Robinson also facilitated an ELD working group and a DLAC to see what the needs are for students learning English. And also, I listened to what our Student Advisory Council had recommended when they did a presentation in March. So there's mental health components to this plan. And our special education team also reached out to our SELPA, our county office, to discuss what the needs are for students with disabilities. And then finally, this plan was emailed to all of our students, parents, and staff. And I also met with Ms. Casey to review these actions and services. So based on that, there are 7 goals. And if one wants to click it, in the LCAP summary, it summarizes all of the goals and the actions and services. So the first 2 goals are very similar to what we've had before in the past. What we added this year is the goal of equity because we want to highlight the work that we are doing. The other difference is that we also have focus goals for our students learning English and our students with disabilities. That's goals 4, 5, and 6. And then some maintenance goals. So for instance, our goal that we want to be able to communicate clearly and efficiently and things like that. And then for the increase and improve services. So this is specifically for our unduplicated groups, which are our students learning English, our homeless or foster youth, and low income needs. So our funds are spent on the ELD program, funds for homeless, foster, low income needs students. And then we also allocated some funds for the sites so that they can decide themselves on what would serve their students the best. And also we are spending some of our supplemental money for our instructional coaching, wellness counselors, and vice principals, which is the former dean of students, because what they do disproportionately impacts the student groups that is required for LCFF. And finally, LCFF requires us to spend at least $3,029,440 on our unduplicated students. And based on the budgeted expenditures for next year, we're planning on spending about $3.2 million for the following year. And again, these are our resources, the LCAP draft, and actually the annual update too. So this is the other part of the LCAP that needs to be approved. And I also summarized the LCAP summary, and then there's the feedback form for everyone to fill out, and that is it.
I mean,
It's
a
like
thing
gray.
of it's a thing of beauty.
Like the gray. Beautiful, very fitting.
I'm going to open this up for discussion. Okay. Mr. Ochapinti?
Yes, thank you for the quick presentation. I know we had a presentation on this in depth not long ago. Yeah, just to echo some of my comments earlier, it's good to know that, we're putting our money where it counts and looking at some of the recent changes to special education, of course, here locally, and wellness. A lot of things been focused on through the pandemic. I think we have a solid LCAP, and of course, thank you for all your work on this and everybody in our district and implementing it. I'm confident that we have a strong, basis for our return to hybrid learning moving forward, and of course this summer. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So again, also to echo the thank you. As I say, I love the executive summary. I go to all of board meetings around the state and show it off. It is the most well-done executive summary of an LCAP that I've ever seen, and that is corroborated by a lot of different board members in a lot of different districts. And the reason why I bring it up is that it helps me be a better board member. I keep the executive summary with me, and I use it every time I read a Friday report or every time I read or my board packet, because it's like the holy grail of everything that we're doing. And so it kind of helps keep everything in perspective for me. And also helps me understand, should we be talking about this or should we not be talking about this? Is it in the executive summary? If it's not in the executive summary, I'm like, what is the discussion, or why are we spending time on it? So thank you so much for making that such a readable document, because I try to get through the whole LCAP. And it's getting harder and harder for me every single year because the state keeps adding extra stuff to it. But I do feel it's like an obligation to read it through at least once, but I'm really happy that I have the executive summary and then the financial summary that goes with it. That really helps break everything down and make everything easily digestible. So thank you.
You're so extra.
Well, I don't think that's extra. I think that's basic
Great.
board.
No,
Just being
I
a
used
basic
to-
board girl.
I used to keep it in my purse. But I don't have a purse anymore, so I feel like I'm slacking off. But
Yeah.
no, it's super, super helpful. And in the executive summary that Ms. Brenner-Hopros does for the budget, really helpful. I used to struggle a lot, and not to say I don't struggle still, but it makes it easier for me to follow. And absolutely, you got to go back to, is it in the LCAP? You know, and because a lot of times, for me, I get stuck in the emotions and the push and pull of decisions. And this is the thing that can ground us. This is what grounds us. So I have to remember that. I have to remember that, because I feel like because of personal things going on in my life, you know, I have not focused enough this way, but this will help me get through the personal things in my life by being a better board member. And it really does, I just can't say enough how grateful I am for, you know, you picking the right colors and explaining them. And you know, it really matters. We love that kind of stuff, you know. You introduced colors into our lives on the board, so, you know. So I think all of that matters. But thank you very much. And if anyone else doesn't have any.
Just thank you so much for just, again, it's all so very clear. Also, in our weekly recap, having the links to seeing how our stakeholders have commented. And we know when we see sort of some of the angrier comments, we know we're doing the right thing.
Yes,
So,
that's right.
I'm open for next color. In 2018, it was the Boston Red Sox color, and they won the World Series. So maybe I should do like an orange or black, something like that.
Or and hear me out, little Warriors blue and gold. I'm just
There
gonna
you
toss it out there.
which would also count as a
Or it could be a rainbow. Just use all the colors.
Or it'd be a rainbow.
Use a rainbow. Be good.
Yes, but more Warrior. No, sorry.
You didn't use Dallas colors before, did you?
I did last year, and look what happened to Dak Prescott. So I'm never doing that again.
We picked those colors and we were in a pandemic. So
There you go.
Exactly.
You caused it.
Not doing that.
I never tripped. if it
Well
was
done.
Dallas colors.
So we do need to have a public hearing on this? Yes. Open for public hearing. And the public hearing closed. Thank you. And let's see, it is 8:38. Consideration of future agenda items, anyone?
So I have one, that we had our Daly City Youth Health Center meeting. And there was discussion about the functionality and the purpose of the advisory board. And because we had the change in executive directors, and then giving the time for Jonathan to kind of lean into his role, the advisory board had taken more of like a board role there, and Melissa leading it. But now Jonathan has kind of stepped fully into his role, and the advisory board is moving back into their advisory role, and we are their actual board. I don't think we've ever really behaved as the Daly City Youth Health Center's board, you know, but starting to kind of lean more into the role that is actually our assigned role, is being their board too. So, and the last Thursday in August, thank you, Tina. Yep. The last Thursday in August is our next Daly City Youth Health Center meeting, and I'm asking if that could be agendized as a board meeting so that we can all attend that meeting, because Jonathan is having a presentation done from a study that he had for, I can't remember the name of the college, but they really did a in-depth study with students to help frame how they move forward. And so I feel like we should all hear that information if we're gonna give guidance as a board and direction. and having him more present that kind of stuff to us and get guidance and feedback. And then the advisory does more what advisory boards do for most nonprofits is, you know, help with community connection, fundraising, et cetera.
Yeah, I feel like we actually haven't heard much from the health center.
Yeah, and they're doing great things now. There's,
What's
you know,
that?
I said, and they're doing amazing things now. I mean, from now
Yeah.
having the COVID testing site to all the mental health services they're having. I mean, the vaccination site, excuse me, every Tuesday, and the mental health service that they're having in here. So I think now it's time to lean in.
May I clarify something? So that looks on my calendar, it looks like it's August 26th.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I haven't looked at the adopted calendar, but do we want to have 2 board meetings in a week, the 24th and the 26th? Because it looks like that. Oh, never mind. No, I think it would be the 17th, so I think
Yeah.
we're good.
Okay,
Okay, never mind. 8/26.
at 4:30. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, that sounds like a good update. I would look forward to that. What I would add is be around communications, specifically around making sure that we have accessibility for our community's multilingual needs. So interpreters, not only for board meetings, but you know, translators, interpreters, and including bilingual instructional aids, where we are and what we could be doing to better support our students who are designated as English language learners, but really our community at large. And so looking at those needs and providing those services for our board meetings, of course, not only in person, but remote, as we have been conducting these meetings. Thank you.
For adjournment, we adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of 2 persons. Retired JUHSD employee Nancy Kearns passed away May 16th, 2021. She was a proud resident of Pacifica, California. She was hired on June 12th, 1980, and worked as cafeteria cashier at Westmore High School, but she also worked at Oceana High and Terra Nova High. Nancy retired on June 16th, 2000. We at the JUHC Board of Trustees send our condolences to the Kearns family, friends, and a host of loved ones. Loretto Furcy, mother of our new Director of Special Education, Mary Grace Furcy, passed away May 20th, 2021. She was a godly mother. She taught her children how to live piously and be committed to helping others. She taught them how to love, patience, and endurance. She taught them how to pray and led by example. She was an elementary teacher for a long time until she retired. She will be greatly missed. We at the JUHSD Board of Trustees send our condolences to Mary Grace, the Furcy family, friends, and a host of loved ones. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.